Most careers don't break at the beginning. They stall after onboarding ends. The structure fades, expectations blur, and suddenly the responsibility to grow becomes personal. At the same time, work is changing faster than ever. AI is reshaping roles, hybrid teams are redefining trust, and pressure is being managed, not always well. This series isn't about motivation, and it isn't about surviving hustle culture. It's about what actually helps individuals stay effective, adaptable, and mentally ready after the first 90 days. We'll explore how people create clarity when guidance is thin, how they build skills that matter in an AI-accelerated workplace, and how they protect their energy without disengaging. Because being mission-ready isn't a personality trait, it's a way of working, one that can be designed. This is Mission Ready, thriving as an individual in the age of AI. At some point in many careers, people find themselves working harder but not feeling stronger. Calendars are full, tasks are getting done, the pace feels relentless. From the outside, performance looks solid, but internally, something feels off. Learning feels scattered, effort feels heavier than it used to, and progress no longer compounds the way it once did. This isn't a motivation problem, it isn't laziness, and it isn't a lack of intelligence or effort. It's the experience of being busy without becoming more capable. This episode explores why that happens, how activity can grow without capability, and what it takes to build skills that actually compound over time. Activity is easy to see. Tasks completed, meetings attended, messages answered. Most organizations are built to notice motion. Capability is different. It develops quietly. It shows up as reduced friction, better judgment, and work that gets easier before it gets faster. The problem is that activity and capability often rise together early in a role and then diverge. Output can continue to increase even while learning stagnates. People stay busy, but they stop getting stronger. This is why productivity becomes an unreliable signal of growth after onboarding ends. What's visible isn't always what's compounding. Tasks and skills are often treated as the same thing. They're not. Tasks create output. They produce visible results. They move work forward, and they are necessary. But tasks don't change the system. Skills do. Skills reduce friction. They make the same work easier, faster, and more reliable over time. This is why two people can perform the same role, complete the same tasks, and produce very different long-term outcomes. One is accumulating output, the other is building capability. When work focuses only on tasks, progress plateaus. When work deliberately develops skills, effort compounds. This distinction matters more after onboarding than at any other point in a career, because structure is lighter, expectations are implicit, and growth is no longer reinforced automatically. Learning is often treated as an unquestioned good. More courses, more tools, more certifications, more content. And early in a career, this kind of accumulation often works. Exposure builds familiarity. Variety accelerates understanding. But over time, the return changes. Not all learning creates leverage. Some learning simply adds load. It increases cognitive effort without reducing friction. It adds information without improving judgment. And it creates the feeling of progress without changing how work actually gets done. This is why people can spend years learning and still feel stuck. Accumulation feels productive. Depth creates leverage. The difference isn't how much you learn, it's whether learning makes future work easier, faster, or more reliable. It's important to pause here and name something clearly. Employees who are busy, productive, and consistently delivering are not the problem. In fact, they are the minority. Most employees do not actively look for ways to improve themselves, improve systems, or strengthen how work gets done. The people who feel this plateau are often the ones who care enough to notice it. They are expending energy, they are staying engaged, and they are trying to do good work inside imperfect systems. That motivation is an asset, not something to be corrected. The risk is not effort. The risk is allowing that effort to be consumed by repetition rather than directed toward improvement. When organizations recognize motivated employees and help guide that energy toward meaningful business objectives, capability begins to compound, not just for the individual, but for the system as a whole. Compounding capability doesn't look dramatic. It rarely involves longer hours or higher intensity. Instead, it shows up as ease. The same work takes less effort. Decisions come faster. Mistakes decrease. And judgment improves under pressure. This is what leverage feels like. When capability compounds, people don't work harder, they work cleaner. Skills begin to carry the load that effort used to. Meetings shorten, rework drops, and energy is preserved rather than consumed. This is why two people can appear equally productive while one steadily pulls ahead. Compounding capability doesn't announce itself. It quietly makes everything else easier. When growth stalls, the instinct is often to learn more. More tools, more courses, more frameworks. But accumulation isn't the same as progress. Depth is where leverage lives. Fewer skills, developed deliberately, outperform broad learning almost every time. Depth allows patterns to emerge, judgment sharpens, execution smooths out, and effort begins to compound instead of fragment. This is why highly effective people often appear simpler in how they work. They aren't doing less because they know less. They're doing less because they know what matters. Focus creates leverage when learning is designed, not accumulated. One of the fastest ways to stall growth is trying to improve everything at once. When motivated people recognize a plateau, their instinct is often to fix it by adding more skills, more tools, more goals. That approach feels responsible, but it usually creates fragmentation. Compounding capability requires discipline. Not discipline as restriction, but discipline as focus. Choosing one capability per cycle creates the conditions for depth. It allows learning to settle, patterns to repeat, and friction to actually reduce. This is why progress accelerates when attention narrows. Focus doesn't slow growth, it concentrates it. One of the clearest signs that capability is compounding is friction disappearing. The same work takes less effort, decisions come faster, mistakes happen less often, and recovery is quicker when they do. This isn't because the work is easier, it's because the person doing it has developed skills that absorb complexity. Tasks don't do that. Tasks create output, but they don't change the resistance in the system. Skills do. Over time, skills carry load that effort used to. This is why two people can be assigned the same work and have very different experiences. For one, everything feels heavy. For the other, the work flows. Compounding capability doesn't announce itself. It quietly makes progress feel lighter. Scattered learning often feels productive because it creates motion, new ideas, new tools, new frameworks. Each one provides a small sense of progress. There's novelty, there's engagement, and there's the feeling that something is changing. But variety can hide stagnation. When learning shifts constantly, nothing compounds. Skills don't repeat long enough to reduce friction. Patterns don't form. Judgment doesn't sharpen. Instead, learning stays shallow and effort stays high. This isn't a failure of discipline or a lack of focus. It's a natural response to uncertainty and plateau. Scattered learning feels like progress because it creates movement, not because it creates leverage. Burnout is often misunderstood as a failure of resilience. In reality, it's more often a failure of leverage. When effort stays high and friction stays constant, energy drains faster than it can be restored. Compounding capability changes that equation. Skills begin to absorb load that intensity used to carry. Work becomes steadier, decisions feel clearer, and momentum rebuilds without demanding more from the person. This is why sustainable performance rarely looks urgent. It looks balanced, it looks deliberate, and it protects energy rather than consuming it. Momentum doesn't come from pushing harder, it comes from designing work that requires less force over time. This episode has made one shift explicit. Not all work builds capability, and not all learning creates leverage. After onboarding, effort alone is no longer enough to guarantee growth. Capability compounds when work is chosen deliberately, learning goes deep, and focus replaces accumulation. This isn't about doing less, it's about doing what actually changes the cost of future work. When skills reduce friction, momentum rebuilds naturally. Energy is protected, judgment improves, and progress becomes sustainable. That is the core shift, from staying busy to becoming more capable. This episode has made one shift explicit. Not all work builds capability, and not all learning creates leverage. After onboarding, effort alone is no longer enough to guarantee growth. Capability compounds when work is chosen deliberately, learning goes deep, and focus replaces accumulation. This isn't about doing less, it's about doing what actually changes the cost of future work. When skills reduce friction, momentum rebuilds naturally. Energy is protected, judgment improves, and progress becomes sustainable. That is the core shift, from staying busy to becoming more capable. Capability matters, but capability alone doesn't determine impact. In real organizations, performance depends on alignment. Alignment with expectations, alignment with priorities, and alignment with how feedback actually flows. This is why capable people can still feel uncertain about whether their work is landing the way it should, and why effort sometimes misses its mark even when skills are strong. In the next episode, we'll look at how signal, feedback, and alignment really work after onboarding ends, and how to stay oriented without over-depending on constant reassurance.